South Africa's press and media not only played a vital role during the dark days of apartheid, but continues to do so during democracy. As we mark World Press Freedom Day today, we reflect on the state of media in South Africa, the independence of newsrooms and the role the Fourth Estate plays in society. Reggy Moalusi is the Executive Director of the South African National Editors Forum and joins us now to chat. Good morning, Reggy. Thank you for your time. Happy World Press Freedom Day. And the obvious question to begin with is, why is an independent media important, not only in South Africa, but for societies across the world?
It's very important, Iman. Globally, the media is critical. That's why on a day like this, we appreciate what Reporters Without Borders do. And they do this every year, where they say, here's a press freedom index, and here's the role of the media. And we look at our global partners, how they are faring. We look at all the countries, particularly here on the African continent, who's doing better, who's doing worse. And we know that the media in the past, even here in South Africa, has played quite a key role in upholding democracy, in upholding, civil rights and all of that. So I think the media continues to play its role to educate, to be there for its audiences and to really put them first. So it's still a journey, and it's a long journey ahead. And it's a journey that encourages us to say, journalism is certainly not dying. The media might be facing its own challenges, but that role across the world, we are continued and we are more than encouraged to continue playing that role.
Society will have its concerns, and you can see, Reggy, with the advent of social media and various different platforms, people that you wouldn't, it's not the day of a letter to the editor anymore, where that was the sole way that you could communicate with a journalist or a newsroom. Things happen immediately. In fact, straight after our interview, this interview will be uploaded and people will share their opinions. And what you see really in a lot of the conversation is the concern about independence. We know that it's common practice for newsrooms globally to accept donor funding, taking millions of dollars from donor funders and foundations to pay for news production. How endemic is this in South Africa, and when should the public worry that those interests influence what stories are covered and how they're covered?
Iman, I mean, the independence of the media, I think it's something that me and you, even when we were at journalism school, we were still being taught about the independence of the media. I mean, decades later, the funding models of the media have drastically changed. So here in South Africa, we often hear that, we often get those questions to say, there are those that are funded by international donors and all of that. But my understanding is that those organizations that are in the media space that are funded by those donors don't get to tell them who to cover, how to cover certain stories and all of that. Those newsrooms remain independent as far as I know, and I haven't heard, having been with SANEF for all these years, where a newsroom has been told or has been instructed to cover certain stories in a certain way. So the independence of the media will always be a topic that we will always debate. And it's a topic that's interrelated to the trust of the media. And if you look at the trust of the media, you look at aspects like the Edelman Trust Barometer, the trust of the media always comes up. And we work hard as the news media in the interest of public interest journalism to say we want to regain the trust. We want to be as transparent as possible. But yes, we do accept that as journalists, no one will always agree with us. But we are always saying we are here, we can discuss, we can debate that. But our understanding here in South Africa, as far as we know, newsrooms are independent, and they are independent even from their donors.
And I suppose, conversely, that opportunity that people have to be able to voice their opinions, to make criticisms, provides them that same platform to hold up examples of where they think there hasn't been media independence and where they could credibly share their concerns. I want to move to some of the other threats to journalism, Reggy. And we spoke now about the encroachment, the possible encroachment of vested interests. But you also have overworked staffers. We're affected by declining budgets in newsrooms, the advancement in AI, in being able to separate, what's real from what's not real, digitalization, all influence the way that newsrooms around the world are able to function optimally. Just talk to us about this new era in which journalism is happening.
Yeah, it's an interesting era, Iman, and it's an era also that has posed opportunities and challenges for us when it comes to AI itself. But I mean, sadly, if you look at the number of journalists that we have in this country, and if you read the Wits University issued State of the Newsroom report, that will tell you what 15 years ago we had about 10,000 journalists in South Africa. Now we've got just less than 4,500 journalists. So journalists, as you rightly say, are strained. Journalists face the mental wellness issues. Journalists face online bullying. Journalists on a daily basis, they face, being bullied and all of that. And there's also the issue of AI. And AI, we as the news media, we have said we live in an era of digitalization, and this era we need to accept the threats, we need to accept the opportunities, we need to see where are the low-hanging fruits for us when it comes to AI, and how we can excellently use AI, and use AI not to replace our journalists, but use AI to enhance what's already not there. The newsroom, in terms of resources, what was there 10 years ago, is no longer there. So, tools like AI, they are acceptable. We can use those. But while we use those, we need to also say, much as salaries are our most expensive overheads in our business, we need to retain jobs, we need to retain our journalists, and the priorities there in the news. So yes, these challenges are there. They are challenges that we keep on having conversations about, such as, how are we going to fund the media going into the future? How do we continue to identify and support the young talent that comes into the media? And how do we keep those jobs? So those are the conversations that we are having as an industry. And they are not only had here in South Africa, they are conversations that we have, across the world. I mean, next week we will be in Accra, Ghana, at the African Media Convention, and some of these conversations will be discussed there by our members. We are also members of the African Editors Forum. And when we are there, these are the issues that we'll be discussing, we'll be sharing notes, but we don't have a silver bullet solution. I can't say to you here that next week we will have answers and solutions. It's an ongoing conversations. We are seeking solutions, and we are talking to global partners to say what was the best model that you did, either in the UK or the US or Australia or China. So yes, these are the conversations we are having.
So, I'm sure a lot of us are so tired of hearing the phrase after 30 years of democracy, but it's an important moment to look back and do some evaluations. And maybe I can ask you in closing to do that for us. The environment and the context in which journalists work in South Africa, you are still allowed to, or you still can investigate things. You have a very strong legal framework. You can say things about people that other people might not like, or you can make criticisms, run investigations, despite the abuse that you referenced earlier, which we'll talk about a little bit more in our program later, journalists can still work in the country. So I'd like for you to just maybe share that appraisal against the backdrop of the international work and the African work that you as SANEF are doing, about the state of the ability and the freedom of journalists in South Africa to carry out their work.
It's a wonderful state, particularly from the government side of things, Iman. I mean, me and you, we know that during apartheid, journalists were killed, journalists were jailed, and all of that. The advent of our constitutional democracy 30 years back allowed, for the Bill of Rights, Section 16 of the Bill of Rights, to say we need to uphold media freedom, we need to recognize media freedom, and we are thankful as journalists here in South Africa to say we often don't get jailed, we don't get killed as compared to other parts of the world. And we'll always, have these conversations with government. I was in a meeting with government colleagues last week, and we keep on reiterating to them that we will always not agree with government. We will always criticize government. And that doesn't mean that we government should jail us or government shouldn't recognize our rights and all of that. So it's a conversation that we will always have, but I think the media has played a fantastic role in the past 30 years in our constitutional democracy. It has upheld our democracy, and that role we can see now at when we look at the state of our democracy, as we march through these elections, covering these elections, the media has played that role, and those in the public sector, in the private sector, do recognize the role the media has played and will continue to play that role and will continue to uphold any government that is in office to say, this is what you are supposed to do, and our work as the media is to really hold you accountable, is to really question the status quo and make you do right.
Reggy Moalusi, thank you very much for talking to us. Reggy Moalusi is the Executive Director for the South African National Editors Forum. Appreciate your time this morning.